Garin was hauling the linked belts of heavy ammunition into the two fearsome heavy machine guns with frantic vigor. He saw that the projectiles themselves were definitely euphorium and very sharp, but it wasn't until his accidentally brushed line of them across his breastplate and the tips scratched deep lines in it that he realized what they were. Pentra, thought the experienced warrior. They were actually delayed explosive Pentra euphorium rounds with a minor enchantment placed on them. Alpha 3-4, engage! The tank commander's voice was cold and efficient. The A1 Lynxes that Omnicorps had brought to Hertzagg were from the last war. Although still fully fledged tanks, they lacked much up-to-date frontline equipment. They had not been retrofitted with active or reactive plates, and used a system for training and operating the 102 mm main gun that was not the most advanced in the Datoshan military. The elderly war machines lurched forward at surprising speed. Although they had each traveled over 300,000 km since their manufacture, Omnicorps had modified their thirsty power plants and maintained them thoroughly since their acquisition. Garin had managed to load onto the linked chains of massive shells when the first bullets began splashing loudly at the road surface near the Dingo's rear tires. The Omnicorps tank crews did not seem to be employing the vehicle's main armament. Only the hull-mounted and coaxial Gatling guns were chanting their harsh, insistent, and deadly cadence. "Get that fucking gun working, Eid!" Jack's familiar cool and collected mannerisms were wearing thin as he had to swerve violently to avoid a probing line of Tracer 1, almost steering the Dingo into a shopfront filled natural remedies and minor potions. The Dingo continued to speed forward. Each gear change was a frantic grinding down the narrow streets and some of the larger alleys. "Come on, old girl," Jack urged his favorite mobile asset on. 1. Tracer, a variation on standard ammunition which leaves a visible trail of burning phosphorus. Omnicorps had positioned its troops well. There was an anti-armor squad at every exit from Hertzagg. Garin finally loaded the other enormous weapon and swung around in the stabilized revolving mounting to face the pursuing Omnicorps tanks. A .70 cal machine gun will not usually penetrate the outer hull of a heavily armored vehicle such as a MT-77. However, with the ammunition that Jack had hoarded for so many years, this was an exception. Garin Eid had qualified on a similar weapon earlier in his professional soldiering career. Although it was an Impervian-manufactured firearm, it had much the same feel as the more prolific Datoshan twin HMG-80. Garin had never used Pentra ammunition in his life. It was considered much too expensive to issue to non-special ground forces. He had heard many accounts from members of the DSF, one about unbelievable penetration being achieved by small-caliber weapons against heavy armor with these piercing rounds. He depressed the trigger with as much strength as his wounded body would allow. The noise was like a row of electric kettle drums and drowned out most of the din from the incoming gunfire to the occupants of the Dingo. Garin corrected his aim from the butcher's shop front, which was torn up by the start of the burst, up to the front of the lead tank's hull. The Lynx is a battle-worthy machine, even in its earlier iterations.